Okay, so I have Eric Thompson today as a guest. And Eric, you're involved with magic. Can you tell us a little bit about, what you do and how you got into it?
Sure. It's great to be here. Thank you very much for having me. I started doing magic around 1980 and working in comedy clubs because I also do stand-up comedy, and the two of them just kind of went very well together. The magic that I do is typical stage magic. It's not the big illusion with the beautiful assistant and all the animals and the birds and the doves and the rabbits.
So more of the card tricks and that type of thing?
A couple of card tricks, some ropes, some scarves. A lot of magic. A lot of the magic that I do is very silly. It's fun. It's more the fun. I'm not the big mysterious, creepy, satanic.
Yeah.
No, it's all good. It's all for the laugh. It's not for the amazement as much as the laugh. Although, I'm often told, we laughed real hard during your show, and then in the car on the way home, I went, wait a minute, how'd he do that? So
it's like delayed reaction.
And that is my favorite reaction to what I do.
Yeah. So did you start doing magic as a child, or what made you fascinated with magic in general?
Yeah, Maria, every little boy when he's 10 or 11 years old, and a lot of little girls too, but every little boy wants to be a magician. Some of us just didn't grow out of it. And what I find is that most little boys want to be a magician. They get a magic kit for Christmas or their birthday when they're 10 or 12, and they do that for a couple years, and they pester their parents until they find a guitar or a motorcycle or something like that, and they think that will get them girls. And then they abandon magic. And I don't know, I've been married 32 and a half years.
So it worked for you.
Yeah, so it worked for me.
So is that your secret to romance then? Learn some card tricks, and there you go.
Keep the magic alive is not just an expression at my house. That's right.
So whatever works, right? So how did you figure out that comedy played well with it? Did it just kind of happen? I know I'm very sarcastic, just my personality in general. So lots of things end up being kind of comedy. I've done speaking engagements for business purposes, and a lot of that ends up being very comedic just because that is just who I am as a person. So is that kind of how you fell into doing it along with comedy, or was that a plan?
My personality was one of, be jovial, be joking around a lot.
Yeah.
That was a natural stand. Plus, I prefer watching entertainment that's funny.
Yeah, of course.
I think when you're delivering a message, be it a sermon or a motivational speech or any a teaching moment, I think if it's delivered with humor, it resonates and it sticks. For example, if you go to church Sunday morning, or if you come home from school that day and someone told you a joke, you can repeat that joke nearly verbatim.
Yeah. But
if someone just drones on about chemical bonding agents or some Bible verse, you may not remember it at all. The joke, though, people remember humor. They remember, you can associate the laugh. It's like song lyrics. You can remember the lyrics to a song, but you can't remember your anniversary. But if you set it to music or you set it to laughter, it triggers something in the memory.
So you've been doing magic since what year was it?
Well, it's been almost 40 years.
40 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time to be doing magic.
It is. I'm tired.
Oh, you're very tired. Yeah, I would say so. It's a long time. That's a long time.
It is a long time.
So you started doing it 40 years ago, and I know off air we talked a little bit about the fact that you've been able to travel quite a bit to do your magic tricks. And can you kind of share with us a little bit about kind of how that developed?
Listen to how cool this is. A few years ago, my wife and I were on a cruise, and we went on this onshore excursion. We're waiting in line. If you've ever been on a cruise, you wait in line a lot. And we're waiting for this bus to take us to some, I don't know, horseback riding thing or some Jeep tour or something, scuba diving, whatever it was. And we're waiting there, and all these children, this is in the Caribbean, and all these kids come up, and they're all 11 or 12-year-old, mostly boys. They come up and they're asking the tourists for money. They're begging for change. And everybody's giving them $1 or 50 cents or, whatever. I reached into my pocket and I took out coins. And like I do all the time, I started messing with these coins, doing magic tricks, did a little sleight of hand things. And I opened my hand to give this kid a quarter, and nothing falls out of my hand. And so the coin just disappeared. Well, this kid was blown away. And in Spanish, which I don't speak Spanish, he doesn't speak English, but he says to me, do it again, do it again, do it again. I know that's what he's saying. So I do the trick again. And he shoves his buddy, and they're laughing, and they keep doing this, and then they call their other buddies over. Now I've got a crowd of like 7 boys crowded around my part of the line, and other tourists are watching, and I'm doing all these magic tricks with these coins. And these boys, it occurred to me, these boys, they're very poor.
Yeah.
They're probably hungry and oppressed, and they live in a ghetto or a barrio that's probably not very nice. And by gosh, I was able to make them forget about their poverty and their hunger and their oppression for just a few minutes, and replace that with joy and with laughter.
That's awesome.
So we got on that bus and we left those kids behind. Of course, we gave them all the change, all the money, and we made an impression. Those kids will never forget that moment. And we were talking about that, and some other tourists were saying, man, that was really something, how you controlled all those kids. And I said to my wife, I said, next year, our vacation, I don't think we should go on a cruise. I want to come back to another place like this and really do a lot more. And so I did. I started going to some of the poorest, most remote places in the world, where I could hook up with maybe a Christian missionary or some nonprofit NGO or a children's hospital or an orphanage or whatever it is. And I started doing shows, and I have those people set up the shows. Then I show up, I pay for the airfare, I pay for my travel expenses, whatever it is. I get there. The only thing I ask is they find me a place to live. So it's very cool. I've lived with families in the mountains of Guatemala. I've slept on a dirt floor of a church or on a hammock in an orphanage or in a children's hospital residential wing or anywhere. And
that's awesome.
And it's been an amazing experience. Now, the other thing I did and what I learned when I was there is most of these people have never met an American. There's a really good chance no American has ever been to this village or this little town, wherever it is, because it's so remote. So when I go, there's really not a whole lot to do as far as tourism. So I ended up at one of their local markets. And what I learned was I could buy chickens, live mating pairs of chickens, for about $14. So I took all the money I had in my pocket for souvenirs, and I bought all the chickens I could buy. And got some locals to help me, and we carried them back to the village. And that night I did a show in the middle of their village. Every single person in the village came out, and I had the village chief or mayor kind of help me out with this. And he divided it up. He had a census of all the families. Every family got a mating pair of chickens. So it was kind of like dinner and a show.
Yeah.
And what they did, as long as Uncle Charlie doesn't eat the first 2 birds, what happens is those chickens will mate and multiply and multiply and multiply. And within a year, they have more chickens than they know what to do with. Every single morning, they go out and get eggs. So their kids are now getting, where they used to be hungry all the time, now they have protein, they have nourishment, they're getting calories, and they have eggs and chicken meat. So they can eat. Plus, they have birds that they can sell at the market. They have eggs they can sell at the market to make extra money. And they're hiring their friends and neighbors to help tend the birds. So what we're doing is really creating entrepreneurs and saving people from, I would guess, death, starvation.
Yeah.
Now it's a great
$14.
solution. Yeah, and it's a great solution. The problem is we do it like one guy at a time, so it takes a long time to save the world, but it makes an awful lot of difference to that one family.
Well, and I think that's the thing. I think a lot of people want to help. I know you hear all kinds of horrible things in the news and, hateful things. And I'm not saying that there aren't hateful people out there, but my experience is that there's so many more good people out there than, bad people. And everybody wants to do good of some kind, but a lot of people don't know where to start. And, small things can make big differences, and maybe they're not able to go and travel and, do magic shows or be able to make an impact on their own like that. But, how would they be able to, you were mentioning $14. I'm assuming possibly that you maybe take donations in kind to be able to allow you to be able to go and purchase chickens. Is there a place that somebody could find that information?
Well, if I can deviate a little bit and then get back to that, I do shows in theaters and comedy clubs across the United States throughout the year. When I do my shows, we've shot videos. I have a comedy special that was directed to video. It's available on DVD as well as on a digital card, an SD card. So I sell those videos at my shows. Every penny of that goes toward chickens. I don't use it to buy airline tickets or food, or there's no administrative cost at all. So when I do these shows in comedy clubs and theaters and private events, corporate events, I get the donations and people in exchange for these videos. You can also buy them at my website at ericthompsonmagic.com. So all of that money collected throughout the year is used to buy food and usually chickens. Once in a while, there'll be a thing that comes up. There was it's a shame that there's so much strife in the world. It really is. At the same time, it's unbelievable. It's overwhelming how much strife there is. There's so many countries that are in the midst of a civil war, and it seems as though children always get caught in the middle of that. So once in a while, we have to buy food directly, and we'll do that with UNICEF or some sort of organization like that. But usually it's the chickens, and it gets a little more complicated. But on the surface, it's chickens. I buy a lot of chickens. I've probably bought, I don't know, $10,000, $15,000 worth of chickens over the last couple of years. And at $14 a pair, that's a lot of birds. Yeah. That's a lot of birds.
Yeah, and you sit and think about how they populate. I mean, you've single-handedly increased chicken populations everywhere.
Yeah, well, listen, don't forget they're eating these birds too. So.
This is true. Yeah, this is true. But seriously, though, I mean, for $14, you're providing entrepreneurship to these families, and I mean that's huge. In the U.S. where we live, that doesn't seem like such a big deal. I mean, it's not so hard for somebody that wants to start a business to start a business. They decide they want to start a business. They pay the, $99, $125, whatever it is per state is a little bit different, to be able to incorporate themselves as a business, and then, they start their business. But in a lot of these other countries, it's not like that. And, it puts it into perspective that, if somebody handed me $14, I'd be like, wow, thanks, $14. But is that going to change my life? Absolutely not. But $14 can literally change their life. That's actually awe-inspiring. I know. I skimmed your website some, and I seen that you do a lot of corporate events and such. What areas do you typically travel to? Do you just stay in your general area, or how do you?
No, I'm on the road. I'm on the road quite a bit. I live in Northeast Ohio, so I'm in Buffalo, New York, to Detroit, to Indianapolis, to Columbus, Ohio, kind of that Pittsburgh, that general area, Cleveland, Youngstown, kind of that swath takes the bulk of my time. However, yeah, I go into West Virginia, Kentucky, Florida. I'm working on a thing right this morning. I was talking to somebody about doing some shows in Oklahoma, near Oklahoma City. So, yeah, wherever. I mean,
okay. Well, it's just, that's good to know. That way, if somebody's like, wow, I'm needing something for a corporate event coming up this year, and I would love to be able to, because that's one thing. A lot of corporations plan these things yearly. They have to, come up with an event to do, or,
sure.
What, and it's awesome to be able to not only provide the entertainment for your event, but also to know that it's going to improve the lives of so many people. So, I would think that there would be a lot of people that would be very interested in that. And,
we do a lot of shows in homeless missions and orphanages, or they're not always orphanages anymore. They're group homes more often than not in the United States. So I do those too. When I'm in Florida, they have a lot of group homes. They're real small group homes, and there's pockets of them everywhere. So when I go, if I have shows in the evening, I'll contact these places and do shows there in the afternoon. So I can entertain these kids. Because, we don't just deliver chickens. It's not just about feeding the stomach, but we also have to feed the mind and the soul. And I don't want to get too bogged down in that, but, laughter is an amazing thing. So it releases a lot of chemical endorphins. And again, people don't forget. I've been doing this long enough that I've had third generations of people come to me. A woman will come to me and say, I saw you when I was a little kid, and now this is my grandchild, and they're seeing you, and my child saw you. So, I've hit almost 4 generations of people that I've made an impact on without realizing it.
And I think that we could go deep into that. I mean, I think all of us have the ability to make an impact on people, and sometimes you don't even realize you're doing it. And I haven't been on this earth long enough to be able to impact almost 4 generations of people at this point yet. But I have been surprised in people that have come to me and said, because of this that you said at this speaking engagement that I was at, I went ahead and decided I was just going to go for it. I was going to start my business, just little things like that. And it does make you feel good. And that's not why I do it. I don't do it to feel good, but I do it because I want to tell people what I didn't know. That's the reason that I do what I do. And the reason that, people decide to do something great is typically because they're wanting to help. And, they'll never really know how big that impact can go. And I think that's awesome, having people bringing their grandkids to come and see you. And I mean, I'd say that does.
Yeah. It makes me feel old. It does do that. But it also, you have to remember, I started when I was negative years.
Yeah.
So I'm
that's
very,
true.
very
This is true. Yeah. In the womb, you were.
Here's what I'll tell you. There are, somebody told me this a long time ago, and I've never forgotten this. You talk about people that maybe they can't they can't pick up and go to some other country and save the world. Mm-hmm. There are 2 types of people. There are senders and there are goers. Now, I'm a goer. Maybe you can't go, but you can help send. So put $20 toward that. Put $50 or $10 or whatever you can afford. Put that toward helping someone else go, not just me, someone. And it doesn't have to be me. If there's a community organization or a church in your neighborhood or your town, and they're sending a group of students to the Dominican Republic to build a house or play with kids or whatever it is. So put money toward that. Go to the spaghetti dinner. You get a plate full of spaghetti for $10. I know it only costs them 50 cents. They're making $9.50. That's right. And they're doing really good things with that $9.50. Go do that.
Life-changing things. And that's the point. There's, $10 to us doesn't mean a whole lot. $14 to us doesn't mean a whole lot. But adding that money together, you're able to go and do so many things. That does mean a whole lot to a whole lot of people. And, if there was a way that all the people's lives that you've touched could let other people know exactly how life-changing it was, I think that more people would open up their eyes to those type of things. I think we underestimate the power of little things.
The program that I started, and I do it all by myself, it's called Million Miles, Million Smiles. And I named that long before I researched how hard it is to go a million miles. I feel like I'll never get to 1,000,000 miles, but that's a lot of space. That's a lot of geography to cover.
And maybe that's the point. Maybe you're not ever, but maybe it's not a end destination type of a project. Maybe it's the type that gets passed on and then passed on and then passed on.
But I've been to West Africa and to Asia. I did shows in China and Hong Kong. That's 8,000 miles from home. So it seems like a long ways until you compare it to 1,000,000.
Yeah.
1,000,000 is a lot. I'll tell you what I saw just as we record this, just this week in central Guatemala. I stay in touch with some of the folks that I met when I was down there. It's been 100 degrees or warmer every single day for about 2 weeks. Now, these people are some of the poorest people in the world. They don't have air conditioning.
Oh.
They don't have anywhere to go to beat the heat. Now, you and I, if it gets to be 105 degrees in our town and we don't have air conditioning, we can go sit in the waiting room at the hospital. We can go to the library. We can go wander around the mall. We can use the drinking fountain. We have safety nets in every direction. The local governments will open up, they'll call them cooling centers. They'll open maybe the gym at an elementary school or a community center building. And they'll provide beverages and maybe even sandwiches for people. You don't have that in Guatemala and Peru and West Africa. They don't have that. You know what their safety net is? It's me.
What's that? Mm-hmm.
It's me. It's you. It's people who, out of the goodness of their heart, recognize a problem and do something to help alleviate it. That's pretty frightening. We have cool, clean, running water that's available to us at no charge from a drinking fountain. Those people don't have that. Their rivers are dirty. They can't get clean water out of the river. So, that's what I'm talking about. It's when you say $10 is nothing, it really is. It's nothing.
But it can do so much.
Yeah, that's your muffin and coffee on the way to work.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know we hear the comment a lot, that it's first world problems,
Oh, yeah.
We complain about, my air conditioning in my car just went out. I'm going to have to roll the window down.
How about not even, it doesn't even have to be that bad. How about they spelled the name wrong when they wrote it on my cup at Starbucks?
Yeah. Yeah.
And people whine about that all day. Yeah.
And I know things are very perspective based. I'm big at saying that life is completely perspective, and, people that have grown up in very harsh environments and harsh realities obviously know a way different life than people that have not. And that doesn't mean that the person that didn't grow up like that at that moment is not experiencing their worst moment.
That's right.
I think things are very much perspective based, but when we take a step back and just think for a moment about our, bad days. I've been complaining about the quarantine. I make it a big joke because that's my coping mechanism. But I've been, trapped inside my house with my kids and can't escape them. And they're driving me up the wall, and I'm trying to figure out how to homeschool and school them. And they're all going to be illiterate. I am not a teacher for a reason. So I'm not really sure how this is going to go. But, we're just kind of winging it. But, again, I'll be stressed out by the end of the day. I am done. But when I take a step back, yes, I'm annoyed. Yes, I'm frazzled. Yes, I'm like, stop touching me and go play, go do something. But I have a home. I have plenty of food. I have every comfort that you can think of. So is it really that bad? It's not bad. I'm just annoyed. It's not even
just that you have a refrigerator and a pantry that's stocked with food.
Yeah.
If you don't, in the fire station parking lot this week, they're giving away food. Or at the community center, there's the National Guard is there giving away boxes of food. It's incredible what we have here. You know what I noticed during the Hurricane Katrina, what was that, 15 years ago? During that
Has it
crisis,
been 15 years ago?
Yeah, well,
that made me feel old.
Well, good. but during Hurricane Katrina, when I watched the 24/7 news coverage, I noticed that the people that were leaving the Ninth Ward in Louisiana, in New Orleans, were walking over that bridge because their neighborhoods were flooded, their homes were destroyed, and they had pets. Now, the poorest of the poor among us have pets.
Yeah.
Just to add perspective to that, in these other countries, they eat those animals.
Yeah.
They don't care for them and share their food with them. So even our poor, not that I want to be poor, but we do a lot. We need to do more, but we do a lot to take care of our poor. Our poor have it pretty good compared to the rest of the world.
And I think that a lot of people don't realize that, because if you've never left the country and seen, and even people that have left the country, they've seen the tourist areas and,
sure,
but going out into, like you said, the remote areas is a whole different experience. And
I leave the beaten path when we go with a tourism group or on a cruise. I always leave the beaten path. I go beyond that gate into the village. I want to see and meet the real people. And plus, the souvenirs are a third of the price when you go into the town.
Yeah. And I'd say the people are actually getting the money for it, too.
That's right. Yes, you're right. Carnival Cruise Lines is not taking 80% of the profit. A few years ago, I was doing a show. I have a group of friends that we prepare meals and snacks and entertainment, and we kind of adopted a homeless mission. And every December we go there, and then we go to a different one in the spring around St. Patrick's Day, and we do a show, kind of the same thing there. We just throw a party for whoever happens to be there. So one night, a couple of years ago, I was doing this show, and I finished up my show, and I was packing up all my magic stuff and getting everything together to leave. And this guy came up to me, and these are all homeless people, and this one was in Youngstown, Ohio, and these there were 80 or 90 people that were spending the night at the mission. And this guy came up to me, and he looked maybe my age, just a little bit older, and he said, "Eric?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Hey, it's me, Joe." And I said, Joe, I don't, and I just looked at him, and I was lost. And he told me his last name, and I went, oh my gosh, I went to high school with this guy. I went to high school with this guy, and I thought maybe he worked there. The school we went to was in a fairly affluent area, upper middle class area. And he lived one block from me in this little subdivision, little housing neighborhood thing. And his parents made more money than my parents. I mean, they were very well off. And last I knew, he was selling office equipment or cars or something. He had a good job.
Yeah.
He was not an employee or a volunteer there. He was a resident. He had some medical bills. He got divorced, and he ran out of couches to surf upon. And he ended up homeless at a mission in an inner city in Ohio. Now, it doesn't take much. There aren't. Most of us are only weeks or months away from that. When the bottom falls out, we fall hard. But we're still better off than most of the world.
That's so true. And I mean, I know I hear all the time that, most Americans are literally living paycheck to paycheck, which,
yes,
obviously with all the COVID-19 quarantines and such going on now, and a lot of businesses are shut down. A lot of people are, financially starting to kind of feel that. And,
sure they are. Sure. And it is fun as an aside. It is fun to watch. I don't care who you voted for, but it's fun to watch staunch Republicans suddenly grasping socialism and embracing it, because now they want the government to come in and pay their employees or pay their bills because their business took a hit. It's just kind of a quick turn of events that maybe maybe there's some room for a little socialism. And again, I don't care how you voted. This is not a political statement. It's just hey, let's be compassionate. Let's quit thinking with an attitude.
Well, and I know some other people that I've interviewed, during this shutdown, we've talked about that. Yes, there's a lot of negatives going on, right now, but in some ways there's also some positives that I think will come out of this. And some of it is just being able to stop and think and reflect and say, is this something that's even worth my time doing? We spend and I'm just as guilty, if not more so than most people, at constantly keeping my calendar just packed. I'm very energetic. I've got lots of things I want to do and try to do and all these harebrained ideas. And, then I have 1,000 kids and, lots of stuff that I got to do on that end and businesses. And, but sometimes a lot of the things that I was doing, it wasn't something that I had to do.
That's right.
It was something that I thought I had to do, and nobody was telling me I had to do it, but I was telling myself I had to do it, and for what? So I think for me personally, this has been kind of a good time for me to kind of reflect and make sure that my decisions are very purposeful. And that was something that I had started kind of working on because, my life kind of completely got out of control, just my personal life there for a while. And, I've shared on the podcast, I started having marriage problems and, just stuff like that. And, we're good now, but, sometimes I think we can become so busy that we unplug from life just so we can get it done. And we think that, once I get to this, well, then I'll have time. Once I get this done, well, then I'll have time. Well, once I get this done, then I'll have time. And then, before you know it, months and months and months have passed and there's just something else that keeps coming up. So, for me, I had already said, that's enough. I'm done with that. I'm going to be more purposeful. And then this stuff kind of happened. And that kind of, for me, has helped refine that thought process. And I think for a lot of us, some of that may mean thinking about, okay, well, maybe I don't need to stop at Starbucks and get the muffin and the coffee every day. Maybe I can just do it, once a week or whatever. I'm not saying, completely deny yourself. And maybe that's what, and then I take that money that I would have spent and try to change a life, and what, like you said, whether it be through helping support what you're doing or, somebody help support somebody else that is doing, good. I think those are some things that can change the world, one tiny little thing at a time, $10, $14, $20, $50, whatever at a time.
And look, don't get the wrong idea here. I'm also selfish. I'm not 24/7 giving. When I go to these foreign countries, I spend a little bit of time as a tourist too. I've been to the top of Machu Picchu in Peru. I mean, I've been to, I petted a hippopotamus in West Africa. I mean, I've done some fun things along the way. 2 years ago, I did a couple of shows I did a couple dozen shows in China. 2 of the shows that I did were at a leper colony.
Yeah.
Now, when I was told, hey, here's your schedule, we're going to a school and then an orphanage and then a leper colony and then a children's hospital and then another orphanage. And I went, wait, what? Back up. I didn't know there were still leper colonies. I started Googling, can I die from leprosy? Is leprosy contagious? And turns out it's not really all that contagious. But think about how long it's been around. They talk about it. They talk about it in the Old Testament, so it's been around for a while.
Yeah, I didn't realize that there were still leper colonies.
There's about 100. There's about 100 of them left in the world.
I'd say, is there any in the U.S.?
There's one in Hawaii.
Huh.
Hawaii was an island that was full of lepers at one time.
Okay.
One of the Hawaiian islands was all lepers. So. Yeah, they're out there, but I look at this and I hear people talk about, well, when this COVID-19 coronavirus thing is over, it's not going to be over. This is the new. There's just a new way of living. We have to adapt to this thing, whatever it is. We'll adapt to it. So because, and I'll say, and look, while we've been at home over the last, whatever it's been, 40 days, I've seen commercials on television in 2020. I see commercials on television that are public service announcements urging people to get tested for HIV/AIDS. Now, the AIDS crisis started in the late 70s, and it's still going on. So if you think coronavirus lasts 90 days and then, we're on to something else, forget it. We have in this country what I like to call the problem of the month club.
Yeah.
And it's where we have a problem. We dwell on it. It's on the front page. It's a mess. It gets all of our attention for about a month. And then, resolved or not, we move on to another problem. Whether it's, during this coronavirus thing, while everyone's in quarantine and all the businesses are shut down and we hear about the stimulus package and the president's press conferences and all these things, we're still at war. We're still dropping bombs in the Middle East. But nobody's talking about that.
Out of sight, out of mind.
We have the problem of the month. We're bored with that problem. That Middle East, we're bored with that. Let's move on. And you'll see that with the coronavirus as well, with this COVID-19. Yeah. You'll see that. In about a month, we will start talking about other things, and that will go to the back page. Even though it's not resolved, they're talking about opening, here we are in late April recording this. They're talking about opening a lot of the United States, beginning a slow opening on May 1st.
Yeah.
Well, this problem will still exist in June and in September and in January.
So, I don't know if you've followed much of what the president's been saying, and then the governor. Not to get political, but has this affected your business? I know you also have, what is it, a furniture, carpet? I can't remember what you said.
It's carpet and floor covering.
Okay,
and
floor covering.
It has. I was ordered to shut down.
Yeah.
And, it was a good idea to stop letting people in my store. It's a very small business, but it's, I don't have a store full of people like a Walmart, but yeah, I went into my office a couple days a week and just did paperwork and answered the phone and tried to help people over the phone, kept the doors locked. And I was the only employee in the store. Yeah. So we did that for a while and, you just deal with it. But absolutely. People are, we try and we don't eat out much, but during this time we've tried to eat out at local restaurants. We've tried to get food to go from local restaurants because those people are up the creek. I mean, their whole paycheck is gone.
Well, and there's a very, very small margin in that industry anyway. I have a marketing company on the side, and we have a lot of clients that are, in that industry. And I mean, they're struggling. And
you couple that with my flooring store is shut down. You got to know that my performance schedule was erased.
Mm-hmm.
Not a single show that I had booked remained. Everything I had this year has rescheduled. So the shows that I had the first week of March are now the first week in March next year.
Yeah.
So I didn't lose bookings, but I lost bookings because I could have booked other groups next year, and now those dates are full. There's only so many Saturday nights in a month. So, it is what it is, and I'll be fine, and everybody else will recover eventually. It will take its toll, more so on some and less so on others. But, we get through it. We do what we do, and 25 years from now, we went to visit my children. My wife and I went to visit our children's children and our grandchildren. I wanted to go visit them through the window of their house because I want them to have that memory that, this was a thing. I remember when Grandma and Grandpa had to come and we played tic-tac-toe with glass markers on the windows. And it's just a different experience.
Yeah, it's
history,
surreal.
Though,
it is.
Part of culture, and it is what it is.
And that's kind of what I have teenagers. So teenagers are trying to think of a great word to say that's not negative. I can't think of one. Funny, I guess. Funny to deal with, because obviously they're kind of in that, well, teenagehood, where everything is the worst possible thing. And, so we've been riding the normal, hormonal waves of teenagers, and then adding just the fact of everything being shut down. They can't go back to school. I have one that was a senior this year, so that's been hard. So I mean, that type of thing, I think is hard for people to understand anyway. But added to a teenager, that's even worse. So I was telling them that they're literally, like you just said, part of history now. This will be, right. This will actually be something that probably is taught in schools, I'd say.
I'm sure.
So, I mean, you think about a lot of the plagues and stuff that we learned about, in school. So this will be added right to it, because it's making history is not always a good thing.
I agree.
But
I completely agree.
So if you had, I like to ask weird questions of my guests just to see their reactions, but it's not weird. It's just I like to say, if you could go back, because a lot of people listen, they come on here because they want to learn something or whatever. If you could go back to your younger self, to younger Eric, and tell him 1, 2, 3 things, whatever, what would that be?
Buy Apple stock.
Buy Apple stock. That's a good one. I actually haven't heard anybody saying that. Not yet.
Well,
that's a good one though.
No. I mean, that would certainly change things. I would. What would I do? I don't think I would change anything. I don't think there's anything that I would change. Are you familiar with the butterfly effect? Butterfly effect. Here, and the motion, the ripple is felt around the world. Look, do I change, whatever. I should have asked that girl to the prom. I was too afraid to ask her when junior high school. Does that change the girl that I married, which means I don't have my kids, which means I don't have my grandkids, and I don't have this career, and I don't live in this town, and no, I wouldn't. No, there have been some regrets, but I would do them again because I ended up where I ended up.
I think that's been a lot of the consensus, and I've said the same thing. I mean, I've said little things like I would tell myself, this or tell myself that. But as far as changing, yeah, I've made a ton of mistakes. I could fill up 5 episodes myself on all the mistakes that Maria has made in her life, but I wouldn't change any of them because they've made me who I am. They have taught me lots of things. And like you said, I maybe wouldn't be where I'm at now. I wouldn't have my children. And even though they're driving me insane right now, being quarantined with me, I still love them and I wouldn't change having them. So if somebody is wanting to find out more about your shows or find out more about helping you, finance your trips and the getting the chickens and all of that, your website's the best place to reach you?
Website is ericthompsonmagic.com.
Okay.
On that website, you'll find links to my YouTube channel, which we're in the middle of rebuilding right now. I've got about 40 or 50 videos up, and by the end of next month, there'll be probably 100 videos will probably be on that channel. There's some really fun stuff, some videos that I've collected from shows from the last 40 years. I mean, I've got stuff. I found an old VHS, ask your grandparents about this, a VHS videotape from a comedy club where I opened. It was one of the first professional shows I ever did. And that was in 1982 or 83. The ballroom at a now closed and gone, excavated over amusement park. Just some really cool videos. I just had a guy call me just yesterday, called me and said he has a video of me performing and it's on 8mm movie reel with sound. And it's from he thinks it's 1982. When I performed at his buddy's bachelor party.
That's great.
And I kind of vaguely remember it was at somebody's house, and in the early days, you take every gig you can get.
Oh yeah.
So I can't. I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking, but yeah. There's okay. That's what I would change. I wouldn't have done that show, but other than that, no. There's some really cool, and then there's lots of video from recently, some stuff, even this year's stuff, and it's kind of, I don't run video at every single show, but I try to do it as often as I can. It's kind of a little bit of a pain in the butt, but I do it. I set a camera up in the back, or I'll hire a video crew, and a lot of my act is improvisation and crowd work. So I'll be talking to people in the audience, and we'll just make jokes. And there's been some real awesome moments that have been caught on video, and I'm so grateful to have them. And I love to be able to share them. So that's on my YouTube channel. You can access that through the website. My Facebook page has all of these videos and lots more on there. So there's updates on when and where shows take place. That's on Facebook. And all of that you can get through ericthompsonmagic.com. My phone number is on there too. If somebody wants to call and talk about how they can help or has an idea or suggestion, I'm all ears. If you know somebody somewhere in the world, it's a big globe. And I try to go somewhere different every year. Because if I go back to the same place over and over, I'll never see everywhere, and that's everywhere is on my list.
Yeah, you got to get that 1,000,000 miles.
That's right. That's absolutely right. So yeah, if you know somebody that's a missionary or does work, helping people in other countries or even in the United States, I'm. It's not just about traveling the world. The U.S. is part of the world too. I do an awful lot of charitable work in country as well. So. Yeah, awesome. I'm in. I'd love to meet some folks and get to know your audience a little bit better, a little more personally, and have them call me, or they can send me an email. My link is on that website as well. It's ericthompsonmagic.com.
All right, that's great. Well, when this episode airs, I'll make sure that the link to your website is in the description. And I really enjoyed having you on here, and I was really impressed whenever I talked to you off the air, even before we recorded this I didn't realize that, I guess I never thought about the fact that, a couple of chickens, we live on a farm, we raise chickens. We have egg chickens, but I never realized that $14, they can start a business. They can, all of that, just kind of putting it together in my mind. I know after we had talked the first time, I told my husband about it, and, I was like, that's just so awesome. I really love that, just that whole concept and that idea. And the fact that you're bringing it, you're just not going and, buying the chickens and handing it to them, which I'm not saying that's bad, but you're providing entertainment and joy and laughter, and all of that combined, I think, is just amazing.
Listen, Marie, if I could just tell you this, and I don't mean this. This isn't a sermon by any stretch. I'm not a preacher. In the 100th Psalm, it says, "Make a joyful noise unto the Lord." Now, biblical scholars will argue with me that joyful noise is singing praise. I don't believe that. I think it's laughter. I think the joyful noise is laughter. And they talk about how, an earthly father love. There's nothing, as an earthly father, I can tell you, there's nothing that I enjoy more than the sound of my children laughing together. There's nothing that's better than that. Nothing.
That's awesome.
I think the Heavenly Father would say the same thing, that hearing his children laugh together would be a pretty awesome experience. So if I can deliver joy and laughter, man, that's a life's goal. And I'll do that over and over and over. And if I can bring them a chicken too, for $7 a bird, how do you say no to that? Of course I'm going to go do that. And I'll joke around with them. And listen, my show, because I don't speak their language, my show gets translated by the locals. So my show's been translated into, 7 different languages, I think. And it's crazy. It's just insane to think that, this little boy from this little town could grow up and feed the world spiritually, feed the world's soul, and fill their bellies too. It's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine, but it's happening. It's so cool. I'm so fortunate to have fallen into this. Believe me, this was not my plan, this was nowhere near my plan. But here's great.
I think a lot of the best things that happen to us are nowhere near our plan. And I think that's something that you learn as you go along, because that, you can lay your plan out and it looks like a good plan. It's not that it's a bad plan. And then when things don't line up, you can beat yourself up about it. But then somehow you end up on this other path and you figure out that, oh, okay, well, this plan is actually better. And I've experienced that myself. And I think that, that's divine calling. So I think that those are things that you can't plan for.
I agree.
So, well, it's been a pleasure. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, but I'll make sure that the link to Eric's website will be found in the details of this podcast. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me or him, and I'll make sure that I get you all in touch. And thanks again for coming on. I really enjoyed it.
Maria, thank you very much. What an awesome opportunity to share some cool stuff. I really appreciate the opportunity to hang out with you and your listeners, and hope to get to see you soon.
Yeah, we'll touch base after all this Corona stuff is, like you said, it probably won't go away, but maybe it'll tame down enough where you can start doing your shows again. And we'll touch base and find out where you're going and what you're up to.
Tell them not today. Swerving on these chickens, cluck out my lane. I'm a boss. Out my way. I just do every little thing that I say. I'm the freaking greatest. I'm the rage, they exclamated. LA Times, I stay on page 6. I'm even your favorite's favorite. You better tell them who's the boss, me. You better tell them who's the boss.